Hey again. I hope your day is going well. My day has improved. Well, I'm not going to say improved. My day started out as good as it was going to get. Um, my work day has improved. The issue we've been having around creating this new team and what is and isn't going to happen and waiting on people to make decisions uh, because the ball has been fumbled so poor or so much. We're going to postpone a little bit to next week and maybe a little bit more to the week after. So although it's kind of frustrating that we're having trouble getting people on board, it is nice that now that we have a little more time, it's not as stressful. So things are feeling better. But anyway, I thought we'd grab the way to glory again and try to see if we can finish this chapter. So we got done talking about where he was comparing the negatives and the positives, and the negatives have an unfair advantage in every competition with the positive, because they give us a faint and ghost-like notion of the positive more so than we would have had. Um, so he's saying that we must believe and therefore, in some degree, imagine that every negation will be only the reverse side of a fulfilling. And we must mean by that the fulfilling precisely of our humanity, not our transformation into angels, nor our absorption into deity. For though we should be as angels and made like unto our master, I think this means like with the likeness proper to men, as different instruments that play the same air, but each in its own fashion. Um, yeah, so he says, I surmise that it will be different from the sensory life we know here, not as emptiness differs from water or water from wine, but as a flower differs from a bulb or a cathedral from an architect's drawing. And it is here that transposition helps me. And that's where we finished. So we're picking up. Let us construct a fable. Let us picture a woman thrown into a dungeon. There she bears and rears a son. He grows up seeing nothing but the dungeon walls, the straw on the floor, and a little patch of the sky seen through the grating, which is too high up to show anything except sky. This unfortunate woman was an artist, and when they imprisoned her, she managed to bring with her a drawing pad and a box of pencils. As she never loses the hope of deliverance, she is constantly teaching her son about the outer world which he has never seen. She does it very largely by drawing him pictures. With her pencil, she attempts to show him what fields, rivers, mountains, cities, and waves on a beach are like. He is a dutiful boy, and he does his best to believe her when she tells him that the outer world is far more interesting and glorious than anything in the dungeon. At times, he succeeds. On the whole, he gets on tolerably well until, one day, he sees something that gives his mother pause. For a minute or two, they are at cross purposes. Finally, it dawns on her that he has, all these years, lived under a misconception. But, she gasps, you didn't think that the real world was full of lines drawn in lead pencil. What? Says the boy. No pencil marks there? And instantly his whole notion of the outer world becomes a blank. For the lines by which alone he was imagining it have now been denied of it. He has no idea of that which will exclude and dispense with the lines, that of which the lines were merely a transposition. The waving treetops, the light dancing on the weir? 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 It's not important what it is. The colored three-dimensional realities which are not enclosed in lines but define their own shapes at every moment with a delicacy and multiplicity which no drawing could ever achieve. The child will get the idea that the real world is somehow less visible than his mother's pictures. In reality, it lacks lines because it is incomparably more visible. So with us. We know not what we shall be, but we may be sure we shall be more, not less, than we were on earth. Our natural experiences, sensory, emotional, imaginative, are only like the drawing, like penciled lines on flat paper. If they vanish in the risen life, they will vanish only as pencil lines vanish from the real landscape, not as a candle flame that is put out, but as a candle flame which becomes invisible because someone has pulled up the blind, thrown open the shutters, and let in the blaze of the risen sun. You can put in whichever way you please. You can say that by transposition our humanity, senses and all, can be made the vehicle of beatitude. Or you can say that the heavenly bounties by transposition are embodied during this life in our temporal experience. But the second way is better. It is the present life which is the, I should know this word, diminution? Diminution? Sorry, I'm gonna Google this one. Diminution. Diminution, a reduction in the size, extent, or importance of something. Okay, so to minimize the importance of it. So it is the present life which is the diminution, the symbol, the, oh my goodness, another word. Well, I've already got Google up. Etiolated. Etiolated. Pale and drawn out due to a lack of light. Okay, so it's the present life which is diminution, the symbol of the etiolated. So the diminution, the reduced, the symbol of the etiolated, in something in dull light. The, as it were, vegetarian substitute. That's good. I like that one. The tofu of life. If flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom, that is not because they are too solid, too gross, too distinct, too illustrious with being. They are too flimsy, too transitory, too phantasmal. I don't know if I said that word right. Phantasmal, like phantom, phantasmal. With this, my case, as the lawyers say, is complete. But I have just 4 points to add. 1. I hope it is quite clear that the conception of transposition, as I call it, is distinct from another conception often used for the same purpose. I mean the conception of development. The developmentalist explains the continuity between things that claim to be spiritual and things that are certainly natural by saying that the one slowly turn into the other. I believe this view explains some facts, but I think it has been much overworked. At any rate, it is not the theory I am putting forward. I am not saying that the natural act of eating after millions of years somehow blossoms into the Christian sacrament. I am saying that the spiritual reality, which existed before there were any creatures who ate, gives this natural act a new meaning, and more than a new meaning, makes it in a certain context to be a different thing. In a word, I think that real landscapes enter into pictures, not that pictures will one day sprout out into real trees and grass. 2. I have found it impossible, in thinking of what I call transposition, not to ask myself whether it may help us to conceive the incarnation. Of course, if transposition were merely a mode of symbolism, it could give us no help at all in this matter. On the contrary, it would lead us wholly astray, back into a new kind of Docetism? Here we go again. Google. And this one is Docetism. The doctrine important in Gnosticism that Christ's body was not human, but either a phantasm or a real but celestial substance, and that therefore his sufferings were only apparent. Ooh. It does not tell me how to pronounce this word. I want to say, oh, here we go. Docetism. I was way off. Okay, so Docetism is basically he didn't have a human flesh body, so he didn't experience what we experienced. Okay. So he said, of course, if transposition were merely a mode of symbolism, it could give us no help at all in this matter. On the contrary, it would lead us wholly astray, back into a new kind of Docetism, or would it be only the old kind? and away from the utterly and away from the utterly historical and concrete reality, which is the center of all our hope, faith, and love. But then, as I have pointed out, transposition is not always symbolism. In varying degrees, the lower reality can actually be drawn into the higher and become part of it. The sensation which accompanies joy becomes itself joy. We can hardly choose but say, incarnates joy. If this is so, then I venture to suggest, though with great doubt and in the most provisional way, that the concept of transposition may have some contribution to I want to try that sentence again. If this is so, then I venture to suggest, though with great doubt and in the most provisional way, that the concept of transposition may have some contribution to make to the theology, or at least to the philosophy, of the incarnation. For we are told in one of the creeds that the incarnation worked not by conversion of the Godhead into the flesh, but by taking of the manhood into God. And it seems to me that there is a real analogy between this and what I have called transposition, that humanity, still remaining itself, is not merely counted as, but veritably drawn into, deity. Seems to me like what happens when a sensation, not in itself a pleasure, is drawn into the joy it accompanies. But I walk in mirabilibus supra me, and submit all to the verdict of real theologians. I'm getting tired of looking stuff up. See, I don't like reading stuff and you gotta look things up every paragraph. I'm skipping that one, I'm sorry. If you want to look it up, it's that right there. But he walks in mirabilibus supra me, whatever that is. Okay. 3. I have tried to stress throughout the inevitableness of the error made about every transposition by one who approaches it from the lower medium only. The strength of such a critic lies in the words merely or nothing but. He sees all the facts but not the meaning. Quite truly, therefore, he claims to have seen all the facts. There is nothing else there except the meaning. He is, therefore, as regards the matter in hand, in the position of an animal. You will have noticed that most dogs cannot understand pointing. You point to a bit of food on the floor, the dog, instead of looking at the floor, sniffs at your finger. A finger is a finger to him, and that is all. I understand his point, but that's not true. I have trained multiple dogs to look where I am pointing and to understand that either means there's something there or to go where I'm pointing. A finger is a finger to him, and that is all. His world is all fact and no meaning. And in a period when factual realism is dominant, we shall find people deliberately inducing upon themselves this dog-like mind. I don't know why I thought it was going to be mindset, sorry. Inducing upon themselves this dog-like mind. A man who has experienced love from within will deliberately go about to inspect it analytically from outside and regard the results of this analysis as truer than his experience. The extreme limit of this self-binding is seen in those who, like the rest of us, have consciousness, yet go about to study the human organism as if they did not know it was conscious. As long as this deliberate refusal to understand things from above, even where such understanding is possible, continues. Okay, I knew there was a word missing. I'm sorry. I'll start that again. As long as this deliberate refusal to understand things from above, even where such understanding is possible, continues, it is idle to talk of any final victory over materialism. The critique of every experience from below, the voluntary ignoring of meaning and concentration on fact, will always have the same plausibility. There will always be evidence, and every month fresh evidence, to show that religion is only psychological, justice is only self-protection, politics only economics, love only lust, and thought itself only cerebral biochemistry. 4. And we're on the last page, by the way. Finally, I suggest that what has been said of transposition throws a new light on the doctrine of the resurrection of the body. For in a sense, transposition can do anything. However great the difference between spirit and nature, between aesthetic joy and that flutter in the diaphragm, between reality and picture, yet the transposition can be in its own way adequate. I said before that in your drawing you had only plain white paper for sun and cloud, snow, water, and human flesh. In one sense, how miserably inadequate. Yet, in another, how perfect. If the shadows are properly done, that patch of white paper will, in some curious way, be very like blazing sunshine. We shall almost feel cold while we look at the paper snow, and almost warm our hands at the paper fire. May we not, by a reasonable analogy, suppose likewise that there is no experience of the spiritual so transcendent and supernatural, no vision of Deity himself so close and so far beyond all images and emotions, that to it also there cannot be an appropriate correspondence on the sensory level, not by a new sense, but by the incredible flooding of those very sensations we now have with a meaning, a transvaluation of which we have here no faintest guess. And that's the end of the chapter. He's obviously a smart guy. He's thought-provoking. I'm ready to finish that up and move on to something else. Anyway, I hope you have a great rest of your day. It is rapidly approaching 5 o'clock, so I'll go get Jacob here in just a little bit. I imagine we'll go to the park, and I will do everything in my power to act like I'm energetic and feeling good and wanting to run around and play with him. But anyway, I will talk to you later, and I love you.